Hey everyone, we're back for another discussion
Is Chevy?
and Key. And this discussion, we wanted to talk a lot about what happened as a result of last year. We discussed in our previous video, 2022, with Chevy having such an extreme turn with his health. And to sum up the 4 years from 2019 to 2022 to now 2023, we got to this point where his health has improved greatly. And we also were reflecting, going back to the end of like 2016, 2017, going into 2017, how we concluded the journey with expanding our family. And it's ironic because we moved this year to Central Florida, right outside of Orlando. And we were reflecting, talking about how back in 2017, we were slated to move here to the Orlando area. Well, still outside of Orlando, not right within Orlando city limit. And when we were talking about it, it was just, for me, ironic because here it is, full circle. Now, 6 years later, we're here living in the Central Florida area. Even though we went through everything we went through 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. So, like, what do you
Hmm.
think, babe, as far as how it kind of is? It's, it's, it's a good feeling to reflect back, of course, and see what we've been through, what we got through.
Yeah, we got through a lot because at one point we were done, split up,
Yeah,
and I guess it's all was put in God's hands because I think if it was left just to us, we wouldn't be here now
together.
together. So I believe that it's all in God's hands, and He worked things out.
Yeah, because like Chevy just said, 2020, well, we'll go back to 2019 because that's pretty much the initial point of where our relationship was not in a very healthy place. And then on top of that, Chevy was having the issues where he found out that he had to get the heart valve replacement. In 2019, we decided that we pretty much were not seeing eye to eye as far as our relationship and the health of our marriage. Just, it had deteriorated. I think a lot of that was we were going through the journey of expanding our family. We had our younger three sons and daughter graduating from college. I'm sorry, high school and going off to college, and also knowing that we we just had a lot of responsibilities that we were drowning, so to speak. And I'm gonna speak more for myself because Chevy can speak for himself. I felt as if there were so many responsibilities that we both had together as a team. However, we were drifting apart, in my opinion, mainly from my perspective. I did not feel that there was enough of me to go around, and I started to lose sight of just myself, even being a wife to Chevy. Um, and so by 2018, to be very honest, I started to feel more discouraged as
Mhm.
far as going forward with our marriage. It was just, that's where I was. in my mental.
Just so you know, I was never on board with that. But I'm of the opinion that if Keisha wasn't on board with us keeping it together, I had to just let her do what she wanted to do and just let things go as they were. And
Ultimately, I
ultimately, it worked
moved.
that way.
Yeah, ultimately, I moved into my own apartment basically 2021. I left Chevy and my middle son and our youngest son were living basically in the house, and I moved out. My daughter was living at that time with her boyfriend, and my oldest had his own place. So it was, yeah, 2021. I moved, and I did it for numerous reasons. But when I discussed it with Chevy, it seriously was about my mental health at that point. That was the top priority, to preserve and make sure that I maintained a good level of healthy mental and just the ability to hold it together mentally. So my mental health was the main reason for me needing to move out. And we stayed very connected in terms of our day-to-day interactions. It wasn't as if I didn't talk to him for long durations, or I didn't see him, or the guys, my sons. I saw them on a regular basis, but we did not live together. And Chevy would come over to the apartment. We had Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner over to the apartment. It wasn't like any of our family interactions ceased. It was more of my everyday living in the same household and doing all of what I would normally do when cooking and cleaning, and just the operation, so to speak, of the family. I was not within the household. Now, mind you, at this point, our two youngest sons are 23 and 21. So we weren't in a position where we had teenagers even. So I'll just let Chev say how he felt at that time when, I was no longer living in the house, but living in the apartment. What were your thoughts at the time?
Well, I really I invested in being single. Um, but I never did give up our relationship.
What do you mean you invested in being single?
I invested in my mentality, my mindset, because you were there and I was there. Two different places, two different lifestyles. Um, but I never gave up on it.
Now, remember, we were going out to dinner, we were
Mhm.
going to the
Like I said, I
movies.
never gave up on the relationship.
Yeah, but I was even right now. I'm listening to you and trying to understand when you say that you invested in being single. I
Well, I had to face that.
okay.
I had to face that. I couldn't just be going on and on and on and not facing the fact that you were out.
Okay.
And,
Single
and
in your everyday living,
yeah,
okay, arrangement. Now, one thing that we both came to the realization is that we're soulmates. That's something that now I'm saying it, but even back then, it's something that goes beyond just saying. It's something that you know instinctively.
Well, it's always something that I had in my being.
Exactly. It's within
I
the
never,
fiber of who you are. You
yeah.
realize this person is my soulmate. For those of you who subscribe to that belief. So it was never a question of if Chevy will be in my life or if I'm going to be in Chevy's life. But one thing I want for someone, or might be several people that are listening, and this might resonate with you, when you're in a relationship, marriage, or just dating, whatever title you may even have for the relationship, you still do not want to fall into this mindset that there won't be times where you will be apart as far as space, living conditions. So, say for instance, like Chev and I was just saying, we were not living in the same home. There were maybe 2, 3 days, 4 days at a time that we did not see each other. Knowing that we were in the same city, we could still drive and see one another. But yes, it changes. The dynamic changes, of course, if you're not living with someone. Let's just be real. The thing is, if you're in a relationship, never be afraid to take the time that you may need to recalibrate, to get back to a point where you are more grounded. Because remember, self preservation, as Chef used to say this so much when we were first dating and even in our marriage in the first couple of years, he would emphasize to me, if I don't take care of me,
Mm.
you know, it sounds great to, look out for you as my wife, look out for you as my mate, but if I don't take care of myself, self-preservation, um, nothing else is going to get done. Nothing else can
Be
get done.
lost.
Right. And I pretty much reflected back to what he used to tell me when I made my decision to move out. And I contemplated moving out for at least 6 months before I did. And I think that one thing that I just held on to is the belief system that I was indoctrinated and um, raised up to believe is you get married, you don't move out. You don't separate if you plan on still being with that person, that is. Like if somebody is, you know, waiting to maybe get a divorce and they have to be separated for a couple of months and they have to go through a separation for those reasons, then yeah. But I never wanted not to be with Chevy, but I also knew I needed to be with myself to work through several issues that I never addressed even before I got with Chevy. So that was something that I needed to do and really had nothing to do with Chevy.
Issues with your previous marriage.
Not just previous marriage, life.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we go through trauma, we go through situations in our adolescence, and we never get the therapy and address those issues and resolve some of those pain points. And then we just drag them into our relationship. So, Chevy and I, like, Chevy is my best friend in terms of someone that I can confide in. Always knew I could confide in him. Um, Knew that Chevy was someone who's a good listener, even though I used to get angry in the beginning
Mm-hmm.
of our relationship because he was not a person to affirm by speaking and always saying yes, yes. He's actively listening without saying anything, just really letting me talk. And I wasn't used to that. But I knew that he was listening because when he came back, it could be weeks later, it could be at some point down the road, he let me know that he heard me because of the things he would do and say. So I knew that he was receiving what I'm saying to him at the time, not needing to say anything at that moment, letting me just get it all out. And then later on down the road, revealing that he actually listened, he heard me, he received what I said, and that was the thing that was so important.
Yeah.
So, you know, right now we're just at a point where, like I said, we moved to Central Florida, and we have only been here for a couple months, and it's a good vibe in terms of where we are in our lives, in our
Our
relationship.
relationship.
Yeah, and we've been through a lot. I mean,
Mm.
undoubtedly, we've been through a lot. But a lot of it, I will admit, is where I have grown, because we've both grown. Chevy, for those who don't know, Chevy is 20 years my senior. So Chevy lived a lot by the time he got with me, where I was a 30-year-old just getting into really learning and knowing about myself.
Experience.
Yeah. So it's been a lot, but I wouldn't change it for anything. Everything that we've been through, every time we go back and we talk about it, I wouldn't change it.
There's a lot to be said for that 20-year difference.
Exactly. And then we're approaching 20 years of being. See, what's so ironic is when you sit down sometimes and you put everything together, like we've been together almost 17 years. That's a
Mm-hmm.
long time. Like when he got with me, my son, our youngest son, my biological son, of course,
Seven,
youngest,
7 years old.
he was 7. I mean, when you think about it, and he's about to be 24, like it's a wow, because he watched our youngest grow up. He watched all of them grow up, let's be real, because even my oldest was going on 14, but they were kids. And it got to a point where he he was the staple for our sons, especially, and our daughter. The thing that really gets me is when you go back and you look at the amount of time, the relationship, we've put the time in. um you say to yourself, it's been a journey,
Mm.
a good journey, because I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change anything.
Wow.
And that's when you know that you've grown as a person, because when in your relationship, if you are still scouring over, oh, I can't stand that this happened, and you're missing the point. It's the journey that you're learning, that you're living,
The growth.
right, that you're growing. If you're trying to change any part of your journey, you've missed it. You've missed the point. And if God allows us another 17 or more, I'm for it. I'm here for it. The thing that I really like about it too is God, he he did more than just blessing Shepherd. He blessed me, because one thing that I thought about one day, it was in its totality, with him being very ill last year, especially 2022. But it was one day last year that it just dawned on me. I'm like, what am I going to do if something happens and Chevy's no longer here? Like, over the period of our relationship, I've thought about that. I'm not going to say I've never thought about it, but I didn't think about it with that, like that
Urgency.
the magnitude of it. So, yeah, but we just want everyone that's listening to remember, though, that you don't want to miss all of what's happening in your journey?
Well, I know one thing. My father, he passed at 64.
Mm-hmm.
I am now 67. God has spared me and kept me here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it has to do with Keisha and the kids to just keep things strong. Because I don't know what would have happened right now with with the relationship between Keisha and her children. Because I'm the father figure. I mean,
And I'm glad you said that. It's something to be noted when we speak about how sometimes the presence, it's just the presence. And I had to learn this. I had to learn this within the last 5, 6 years. The presence of Chevy being here as the man. My sons and daughter never, of course, replaced in their mentality their biological father by saying Chevy is their father, but they know that he is the constant, that he really is the father figure. It has never been, and we can be candid, it has never been that they have wholeheartedly embraced, and they don't call Chevy dad. However,
they've done things for me that kids have not done
for
for
their
their
own parents,
father.
right?
Yeah,
They've done stuff for him. But the
for their
thing of
biological father.
right, because they do have now, of course, because sometimes kids go through a lot when they're growing up trying to embrace the idea of their biological father or biological mother not being there and having to take on the step parent as that, in that capacity. But now as adults, they know and they have acknowledged. And I think in our previous video, Chevy said our third, or not third, our middle son, Maurice, he basically, he just stood in the paint when I wasn't there a lot of times and just helped Chevy
Hmm.
during his time of need with his illness. And it says a lot. It says a lot. Children, they know who has been there. They know who loves and cares for them. And sometimes it, takes some time for them to come around because they are children and they're confused or angry at the other parent or what have you. But we're just grateful because we're here now and we're able to reflect. I'll just say for me, I'm able to reflect and just say thank you, God, because a lot has happened and all of it was for the good of our lives and our relationship and our family. And that's what I'm glad I didn't miss, because I could have missed that. I could have looked, and it's all about perspective. I could have looked and taken everything and said everything, of course, that happened bad and been like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever. It wasn't the best thing, I could say that, but it wasn't the worst. That's when you know that you are not missing the point, when you can see that something you went through still is not the worst thing you could have gone through.
Amen.
So we're so glad to be able to come every week and talk with y'all. Hopefully, if this is your first time listening to us, give us a like, comment, let us know what your thoughts are. Let us know what you would like to talk about. And if this impacted y'all or touched y'all in any way, let us know. We definitely are interested to hear what your thoughts are. And we definitely come back next week to talk to y'all some more.
And we are interested in your issues and problems. Anything that we can say or do to assist, please feel free to let us know.
Yeah.
God bless you.
Have a good night, y'all. Bye.